I Hate Politics is a podcast about a human activity we love to hate. And this is the I Hate Politics candidate interview with Tim Adams from Maryland Comptroller. I'm Sunil Dasgupta, host of I Hate Politics. Tim Adams is a Maryland businessman who built a large federal contracting firm starting out from the trunk of his car and continued to lead and grow his business even after he became wheelchair-bound almost 2 decades ago following a fall that caused him a spinal cord injury. In 2018, he was elected mayor of the City of Bowie, halfway between Washington, D.C. and Annapolis in Maryland. Bowie has been a black majority jurisdiction for some time, but Adams was only its first black mayor. In his race to be comptroller of Maryland, Adams lent his campaign $1.8 million recently to draw abreast with his Democratic primary opponent, the delegate from Baltimore, Brooke Lierman. The audio for this interview is somewhat choppy sometimes, and I hope you'll bear with us. We do most of our interviews on Zoom, and sometimes the connection is not quite there. Music for this episode comes from Carol Levchenko, an Arlington-based singer-songwriter who is the choir director at Centerville High School in Fairfax, Virginia.
Forgot about the way it felt when we'd say hello. How are you? 'Cause these days we ain't doing so well. This is my quarantine song. Everything feels wrong, but I know it will be okay. Just maybe not today. There's so much I miss.
Tim Adams, welcome to I Hate Politics.
Hey, good morning. It's good talking with you.
You are running for Maryland Comptroller. What is this job of Comptroller in Maryland?
The 30,000-foot level answer to that is that the Comptroller is, by the state constitution, the chief fiscal officer of the state. I think it's easier if we talk about it from a more simplistic term, and that is understanding that that's our tax collector. You know, that's the person who processes the checks and the refunds, and also just make sure that we have to look at making sure that everybody pays their fair share, that we protect their, identity, that we prevent tax fraud. One of the things I'm excited about is being able to bring my experience from what I do to assist in that area as well. Particularly as I do cybersecurity for national security. The second thing, as we talked about, is that Board of Public Works. And going back to that, I've become such a key part of the role. As you know, all the major contracts, 200,000 and above, go before the Board of Public Works for approval. The thing people don't understand is that with that Board of Public Works, is that it's kind of contract centered on a lot of the issues. And what I mean by that is, we have to make sure we do a good job of looking at contracts and understand what's being brought. I personally believe that right now we have way too many sole source contracts that are coming to the Board of Public Works. I think we have way too many retroactive contracts that are coming to the Board of Works. And along with that, we have way too many waivers on the MBE program. And I think what we need to do is look at stopping all the unnecessary sole source contracts, making sure people have an opportunity to bid on them. And part of that goes to, we all know that the greater the competition, the greater that we as taxpayers get more bang for our buck, because the rates are usually lower, i.e. people become more competitive in their costs. The other part of that is innovation. when you have an opportunity for greater competition, you have a greater opportunity to be innovative. And it also means that when we keep doing all these retroactive contracts, that we have to make sure that we look at that. And that's the agencies having to really take a strong look at what they're doing. One of the things, as I said, I've been working with contracts for decades, and I'm a defense contractor. And so there's some of the most complex and detailed contracts, as you may know, of trying to work through. And I've been doing that for decades. That's my livelihood because I'm a defense contractor. So,
all right. So let's parse some of this that you said. First thing you said was you want to make sure that everybody pays their fair share, right? And part of that is fair share is often about having a progressive taxation system, which we do, but not at the county level, but at the state level. But can you explain how you think the comptroller affects that? The taxation is a legislative function. How would you, as comptroller, have an impact on making sure that everybody pays their fair share?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what's really in the wheelhouse of the comptroller. And I think what we have to do is do a better job of expanding our data warehousing of information that's coming in, from taxpayers and others, and also to do a better job and bring in more people on a data analytics side.
To what end, though? To what end? I mean, how are you going to solve the fair share problem? Who is not paying their fair share, right? And how would you as comptroller change that? Because taxation is not a subject that the comptroller has within their authority. It's a legislative subject. You collect taxes, but you don't set taxes.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. But you collect the taxes. For example, we haven't had a tax gap review probably in 10, 15 years. And that's where we look at what we should be collecting versus what we're actually collecting.
Okay. Can you as comptroller authorize a tax gap review?
Yes, that falls under the purview of the comptroller. I would also have a review of the agencies, a top-down review of the agencies of all of the things that we talk about trying to help businesses. We give a lot of tax credits and other things. I think it's important that the comptroller do a review of those to see if they're actually doing what they're supposed to do. We give them tax credits, right? Businesses and nonprofits and all of that. And they're usually stating what they're going to do with those dollars, i.e. with the credit, and we give it to them. But we need to do a stronger enforcement of making sure we go back and look at it. Now, the legislative part has looked at helping with what they call clawbacks, where we identify those that aren't working and we try to get our money back for it. But the comptroller has the authority and can go and do a top-down review of all the agencies and see how the tax credits are being used and what we can do and put that forward.
Okay, so it is my understanding that SDAT spends a lot of time and manpower in administering tax credits. Are you suggesting a review, an audit of tax credits as they are issued? And would you be able to order SDAT to do it, or how would that work?
Yeah, that would be something coming out of the comptroller's office. We would order that review. See, a lot of people don't understand the real power that lies within the comptroller's office to support the people. For example, a lot of people don't realize if need be, constitutionally, the comptroller can go into agencies and reduce their budgets by 25%. And that's solely the purview of the comptroller. And I see you're looking and saying, I didn't know that. But yes.
I would imagine it would be extraordinarily politically difficult to go into agencies, especially if you have a Democratic governor, and to implement that. Even if you had a Republican governor going into an agency and cutting their budget 25%, I would imagine is extraordinarily difficult.
Well, I would like to say to you that the only time you would use that is in some really extraordinary situation.
Okay. Do you see any extraordinary situation right now where you would do that?
Oh, not just to do it, but say, for example, if we continue down the path, for example, the Board of Revenue and Estimates at the comptroller said, let's say we did that. But then imagine if there is an economic downturn, a severe one, and what we're projecting as revenue and expenses is changing rapidly. Then it would be the proper and the fiscally prudent and responsible thing to do to go to agencies and say, we have to reduce these.
I agree, but that will be, I assume that the executive branch will have sort of lead that process and not the comptroller, but at least, please correct me if I am misunderstanding this, that the governor would lead the process of, instituting cuts if there's a severe downturn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The specific cuts that would be made, you would have to trust the agencies and the governor to make sure, because you would want them to look at. You wouldn't want to step in and start trying to run the agencies.
Right, and that's my question. My question is exactly that.
But what I'm saying is, you as the comptroller, remember there's that fiscal responsibility, and you would have to say you have to cut them, and how they cut them is in their purview. You wouldn't go in and start cutting further, but you would tell them the bottom line. You do. Now, there are some suggestions I would make.
Okay.
And one of them I would say is that we make sure that we try and protect the employees. Many organizations, I'm a president and CEO of SATEC. I grew that business from the trunk of my car to one of the largest Black-owned businesses in the nation. And that's that executive leadership that I'm talking about there. We can be talking with them about making sure that all of the cuts don't ride on the backs of the hardworking men and women. So.
Well, that would be fine if you're running for governor, but that's not what you're running for. You're running for comptroller. So if you want executive authority to be able to be a CEO, then the job is the governor. It's not the comptroller.
No, I disagree. I disagree with you, because you have to be a CEO to run the comptroller's office. You have to have executive leadership. Remember, you have a very diverse workforce, not only in nature, but also in geographically. I.e., you have several offices in different places across the state. And so, executive leadership is about making sure how to manage stuff.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you internally. I agree with you internally in the office. Yes.
Yes, and that's what I'm talking about. But the executive leadership within the office of the comptroller. That's what I'm
But
talking
the comptroller at the policy level works as a team, in a team with the legislature and the executive, and those roles are defined. And if you're going to define your role as a more executive role, then do you think that the governor is going to go, "Oh, comptroller, come run my agencies for me"?
No, and that's not what I'm implying. What I'm implying, remember, we started this off saying that with the fiscal responsibility, he can request agencies to cut up to 25% of their budget. And I didn't say I was going to go in and tell them, the comptroller, tell them how to do that. But I'm just saying that's one of those responsibilities that go with it.
Okay. So it's interesting that we are talking about a fiscal deficit situation when, in fact, we have a fiscal surplus situation. If you were to win the comptroller's election, you will go into office with a unforeseen surplus. How does this authority translate to those circumstances?
Well, I think first and foremost, to go back to it, when I was talking about the reductions and all, that was if we did hit some kind of negative turnover. And I think all of us understand that those kind of things can happen at any time. We have a current $2.5 billion surplus. That's not to guarantee as we continue through this pandemic and as we continue to move forward, that over the next year and when we go into 2023, there's no guarantee that
Well,
surplus.
the Board of Revenue Estimates has said that there will be surpluses through 2027.
Yes, and again, the thing we're talking about is potentially what could happen. That's all.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the second thing that you brought up, which is the role of the comptroller in the Board of Public Works. In the Board of Public Works, the comptroller is one of three, with the governor and the treasurer, as you point out. I think you said that you want to look at some contracts that come out of it, the sole source contracts, the retroactive contracts, the waivers on the MBE program. To do that, you require the support of either the treasurer or the governor, correct? Because it's a two to one voting situation. And the treasurer is appointed by the legislature. And the governor, of course, is elected all on their own. So it's often a testy situation in the Board of Public Works. How do you think you are going to deal with that?
The governor, as you said, will be elected. A lot of times he's feeling beholden to his party and those there. So that's where he is. The treasurer, as you know, is elected by the legislature, so that's where his loyalty is. I'm running for comptroller because that's that swing vote. That's that independent vote. A lot of people came to me and asked me to run for comptroller based upon not only my experience, both in the public sector and the private sector, and understanding a lot of those things, but also because I'm someone who has an ability to work with both sides, and also someone who will just be there for the people. Now, I say this to it, I say it proudly. I'm not coming from the legislature. So it's not like I get it. I'm not going there to be the second vote on the public works for the legislature. I'm going there to be the independent voice for the people. I have talked with the governor before and the lieutenant governor that we have now. I have relationships and understand with the new treasurer. So that's where we bring it together. That's where we talk about what's in the best interest of people. And when I talk about what comes before the public works, I think one has to understand something I've been doing for decades as well. It's how you advocate for what's going on. If an agency is looking and we understand that they have needs and all, we have to advocate to them to make sure that they understand where some of the resources they can use are, and being able to work with them from that, just as an assistance. And what I mean by that is I have been fighting for MBEs for many, many, many years. I being one, and understand all the challenges that go along with that equity and that inclusion. And so what I would be looking to do is make sure that we put people in touch with the agencies and others and make sure they understand that we don't have to do as many waivers there. I mean, let's be very candid. I've been on the other end, and, you know, the truth be told, where I get a phone call and they say, hey, we need some help doing such and such. Do you do that? And you say, yes, I do that. And then you never hear from them again. And then you see them getting a waiver that they couldn't find anybody. Unfortunately, that's not the majority. By no means am I saying that. But that happens. And it's those kind of issues that I've fought against.
Okay, you said that the governor is elected by the party and the treasurer is elected by the legislature, and that the comptroller is a swing vote. You are a Democrat, right? Are you running as an independent?
I'm running as a Democrat.
So why are you not elected by the party and the governor is elected by the party?
Because I believe, you know, for example, I'm mayor of the City of Bowie. We don't have a partisan election. It's independent. Everybody.
But why are you independent if you're running as a Democrat?
I didn't say I was an independent. I said that's that independent vote on the Board of Public Works. And what I mean by that is it's someone who is focused specifically, I believe, on what's best for the people.
But the governor could make the same case, right?
Yeah, he could. Historically, the governor typically has a view. I mean, the governor names all the agency heads and all of that. So he has a vested interest in those agencies and others. And that's what I'm talking.
Okay, let's talk about the MBE program, the Minority Business Enterprise Program that the state of Maryland has, that is basically a set aside for procurements for minority businesses. You said that the program is not working well. What is the extent of the problem? How much waivers are we giving?
And that's a very good question, because people have asked me that about talking about we should be increasing the MBE set aside and doing those things. And my response right now is that no, we need to meet the goals that we've already set of 27%. I want to say that we probably really only hit about 11 to 12% of that goal. And we need to focus on that. We need to focus on making sure that the MBEs are identified, that they have an opportunity. One of the things that MBEs face, and candidly, is they go in, they win a contract, they're part of the subcontracting plan, the small business plan, the contracts get awarded, and they never see their portion. They never get their piece of the work. And we need to take a look at that. Yes, that's a problem for many businesses. I myself have been through that.
Right. So as comptroller, can you audit that?
Well, I think on the Board of Public Works, you can. And I think it's important that we do realize and understand that that is the way we will build that economic engine here. We've got to make sure that the MBEs are really included. Minority businesses, small business are really included in those packages. And we've got to hold businesses accountable. And yes, we should be able to look at the numbers and make sure that they're audited and go back and see who are the good players, who are the ones who are really helping us build. I think there's a current contract, and I can't say the name of it right now. I think it was for about maybe $200+ million that was awarded sole source. And the Black Caucus, the Maryland Black Caucus and others balked because of the way it was done. And we're looking at trying to bring that back. You probably saw that review that was done of contracts that were given where they were sole source and they were retroactive. And there are big numbers of discrepancies with that. And I want to say coming from the IG's office, the Inspector General's office, where some of the contracts, the work wasn't even done, where people were billing for it. So I think we need to take a look at that and just make sure that we're more prudent, a lot more prudent about who we're awarding to and how we track those and measure those.
So that's interesting. The IG's office provides a report, not the comptroller's office. So do you think that the office of the comptroller is not fulfilling its constitutional responsibilities in that sense?
Not at all. That's the result of the contracts. But that feedback needs to be given, and people need to be held accountable.
Okay. You have a strong background in cybersecurity. You run a company that, is engaged in cybersecurity matters. Recently, the Maryland Health Department COVID dashboard failed because of a hack. There have been several other attacks in Baltimore City schools. Can you speak to the extent of the cybersecurity problem that there is in the government in Maryland, and also maybe in the counties? What is your sense of it? Where is the breakdown?
Yeah, I think one of the things we have to do is we have to respect the men and women who are trying to fight that every day and what we're trying to do. The threats evolve on almost a daily basis. So I want to be fair to everyone and understand that. And that's the key. One has to be prepared. When I talk about change, it's that we've still got to make sure that we're able to be responsive and can change with the threats as they come along. Because of what I do, I'm trying to be as coy about this as I can. I can't really talk about it. If you can read between the lines on that.
Of course, I understand that. So here's the problem that I come upon when talking about cybersecurity. Anybody that knows is silenced by contract or cannot talk about it. Those that don't know talk in generalities, so we don't know what exactly is going on. The argument is that, cybersecurity is a problem, but we won't identify the specifics of any case because it is counterproductive to do that. But also then you're not going to get that much public support for cybersecurity. And understand there's a report out there that says that we need $150 million just to fix the problem right now.
There are specific data analytics that we can use to help prevent that. We have to be able to bring in the experts who can help with that as well. And that's where we as a state and those on the county level need to do. There are protocols we can put in place. It's just like after any other major event that we have, we know that there are new things we need to do to prevent.
But why don't we? I mean, I understand all of this. This is fine. Yeah, we have to put in new protocols, get in experts, put in more money. But why don't we?
Well, I think you have two issues there that you touched on. Number one, the state and the municipalities aren't competitive when it comes to salaries in those areas compared to what we're looking at with the private sectors, and we've got to change that.
How do you do that, though? I mean, you're running for a state office. The salaries of county employees are determined by the counties. How do you get them to change? I mean, it's one thing in Montgomery County. I suppose it is easier to be competitive salary-wise because it's a rich county. But in Garrett County or Allegheny County, how do you do that?
And again, I'm not going to try and sit here and say I can tell counties how to handle their salaries, but there's a reality that I think the citizens need to take and need to place upon their elected officials in that area. And if you're saying somebody doesn't have the resources, then I think those are issues that we need to bring to the legislature, to the governor's office as well.
So you said the citizenry needs to put pressure on on political leaders to deliver on cybersecurity. But the problem is, as I mentioned, is that we don't often know enough about the threat itself. It's just the system breaks down, right? The COVID dashboard breaks down, but we don't really know what happened. Right. And that information seems to be privileged in a way that we can never know what happened. Right. And so how do we as citizens, not knowing what the problem is, insist with our political leaders that they must deliver?
That's the accountability part. Making sure we put all the current protocols in place, that we set up a system and a team that makes and can respond real time to the threats. And that's what I mean. Develop that protocol and being able to share with the municipalities and with other federal agents, at least state agencies, what the protocol should be, how they should do it. I understand this. It's hard for people to change. When you start telling somebody, hey, wait, you can't charge your phone at the station, at your workstation. You can't be plugging it into the computer to charge and all those little basic things, but they mean a lot. And as you lay out what those protocols are for people and you define those, and then you have to take responsibility in making sure that people follow those.
The other thing that I think you mentioned in your opening remarks was racial justice and how the comptroller's office can help in that.
Yeah, I think you look at what we're doing with our management of the pension system. What is it? Tierra Maria program, where we're supposed to be getting more people, particularly of color and immigrant, engaged in the money management side of that. And what you have to understand is those people are doing a great job of giving great returns. I think, but it also means that we have a lot of minority-owned businesses here in the state. And so we need to be investing in them. And I call it like the double bottom line hit, where we bring in and can recommend money managers that they can use a minority, but also that they look at making sure they find companies, particularly in the state, that we can invest in that have good returns. And we can make that happen. That's
right. So the comptroller does sit on the board of pensions, right?
Right.
Okay.
And we don't select. I don't want anybody to be misled. They do not specifically elect and select the money managers. They can make recommendations, but there's another group that really picks those people. But I think we need to make sure that we're putting more. We got some great able-bodied minorities who are doing some phenomenal things with money management. I sit on the board, foundation board, as an emeritus for the University System Foundation of Maryland. And we have a young man who is just burning it up, doing a fantastic job. And so that goes to show that things are running. And that's part of the things that we...
But that's interesting because if we pull that young person out of the university systems, work and then put him at the state work, doesn't the university system lose that person?
Yeah, but I wasn't saying that. I was using that as an example of those who have said that they aren't out there, that there aren't good minority, good people of color, great money managers. And my point I'm saying is they are out there.
Oh, I'm sure.
And we need to be recruiting and bringing more of them in.
Okay.
Let's be candid. There's been a bias on what we believe, good money managers look like. And we need to change that bias. There's
a bias about what good teachers look like. There's a bias about what good police officers look like. There's a good bias about money managers look like. It is across the board.
And that's what we've got to change as a society.
Okay.
And that's first step. There are those who may say the same thing, a bias about what a comptroller should look like or be. There's a bias about whether or not someone in a wheelchair can do it or a person of color and all of that. Those are biases we have to get past. And I think when we look at people's credentials and their ability, there's a bias against people who haven't come out of the political system. There are a lot of biases, but we've got to get past that. And we've got to start looking at the credentials of individuals and basing our decisions on that. And there is one thing along those lines, if you don't mind me saying, because I think it's important, and that is for a lot of our politicians and all, we have to stop what I refer to as the political thuggery. And what I mean by that is if somebody doesn't agree with you or if somebody goes somewhere else, that there's supposedly this political price to pay for doing that. And I don't think we should. We've got to figure out how to remove that from our politics. And it goes back to what I say about leading by example. We shouldn't be trying to tear people down to get elected. And that's why people hate politics. Because so many people believe that going negative is how you win. And talking about people and other people and what they can't do and all those things. I think we should be focused on what our abilities are, talk about who we are and what we bring, and not get involved in trying to tear somebody else down. I just don't think that's part of our political discourse. And you got to lead by example.
the last thing I think you mentioned in your original list, which I, noted down in a rush, was the, make streamlining processes within the comptroller's office. How bad do you think the situation is now? And what do you need to do to streamline?
I don't think that things are bad in the comptroller's office. Let's make sure we get out that we have, and our citizens need to understand that we have a great system. We have a great process that we do. The returns are done very effectively and efficiently. I think the men and women who work in the comptroller's office are outstanding. So they're there. They're doing their job. They're doing their things. But we have to always be doing process improvement. We've always got to be looking at how we're going to do change. They're putting in a new system there. We're looking at all those things. But you still have to do a review. You still have to make sure that you're looking and saying, okay, what is the best process? What are best practices from around the world, from around the country that we can use? And so when I talk about doing that, that's what I'm talking about. It's about making sure that we continue to be forward-leaning and looking at what works best for the citizens. That's the change I'm looking for. That's the process change I'm looking for. To make sure that we stay on top of that. I mean, as a CEO and president of a company, and even within the city, that's what we're constantly doing. We're constantly looking at how do we improve things? How do we make it better?
Tim Adams, thank you for taking the time to come on I Hate Politics. Good luck in the campaign.
Hey, thank you so very much. And this has been a great conversation. And I hope we get a chance to do it again.
Are the shows, my longing for live music grows. This is my quarantine song. Everything feels wrong, but I know it will be okay. Just maybe not today. It'll be okay one day.
That was Mayor of the City of Bowie, Tim Adams, now running for Maryland Comptroller. You can find out more about him at timadams.org, and you can follow him on Twitter at Tim4MD. Tim4MD. Music for this episode comes from Carol Levchenko, an Arlington-based singer-songwriter who is the choir director at Centerville High School in Fairfax, Virginia.
Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Bring it in a bucket now. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Every little once in a